Welcome, welcome. During the Dragon Age The Veilguard preview event, I was somehow allowed to interview John Epler, creative director and writer on Veilguard and longtime Dragon Age veteran. Now, this wasn't even the first time we met, and he has been nothing but nice to me every time I've talked with him, but I'm just not used to in-person events or interviews, so I'm incredibly nervous in this recording and just jumbling up my words, and I even forgot to turn on my nice recorder for the first two questions, and we're all just blessed that I had the thought to use my phone as a backup recording for the entire thing. This was taken in a very large auditorium, so the audio quality isn't amazing, but I do hope you enjoy some of the stuff I learned during the interview. And with that, here we go. We have a lot of introductions to some of them in the lore previously, but something like the Lords of Fortune are really new to us. So can you give us a small taste of what the Lords of Fortune are, other than treasure hunters, or is that really just it?
So they're fundamentally they're treasure hunters, but they're treasure hunters who are, I would describe them as respectful treasure hunters.
Mm-hmm.
For example, they work with elves and they work with dwarves to make sure that when they're not stealing cultural artifacts, but they're all about, I'd say they're chaotic good treasure hunters, chaotic good pirates. So there's a lot of, they're willing to stand up against in their case they're on the coast of Vervain, and you've got the Antom out there. They're willing to fight them wherever they see them, fight Darkmon, things like that. So kind of like I said, chaotic good treasure hunters who do things as respectfully as they can. So
next I want to touch on the Shadow Dragons.
Okay, awesome.
So they're very new.
Yes.
And so far, only thing we really know about them is that they just oppose the Venatori.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that they're trying to stop Venatori's vision of Tevinter, but what is their vision of Tevinter?
Their vision of Tevinter is one where mages no longer are accorded the ultimate power, basically, they want a Tevinter where non-mages can live equally and at the same level as mages. They want to get rid of slavery as an institution and just basically reform Tevinter, bring it into line with a lot of the other nations of Theta. So
okay. Then I want to touch on the Veil Jumpers.
Yes.
So we know that they just deal with strange magic.
Mm-hmm.
But what is for someone who chooses that in the Rook, what's a day in the life of a Veil Jumper?
Day in the life of a Veil Jumper. So I'll say, just to take one step back, when we talk about Veil Jumpers, we base the name off the idea of smoke jumpers. You're jumping in where you see things start to go wrong. You're getting right into the most dangerous heart of these magical artifacts, these magical anomalies. The day in the life as a Veil Jumper is you see someone, maybe someone from a Dalish clan or from a city on the edge of Arlington. It's hey, something weird's going on in the forest. We're not sure what. So the Veil Jumpers will go out, find the artifact, find what's causing these weirdness, and try to basically calm it or shut it down. So, because again, when Arlington, the war against Tevinter, when Arlington disappeared, they left a bunch of artifacts behind that are now, because of the magic seeping back into the world, starting to turn on, starting to activate again. And because they were told they haven't been maintained, they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So the Veil Jumpers are to make sure, again, Arlington doesn't get sucked into some kind of veil dimension or something like that. So.
Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is that you are the writer of Barar.
Yeah.
So how I understood how the writers worked in the past is that you had, as a group, you all made character concepts and then you chose which one kind of spoke to you. Is that what happened with you and Barar?
So funny story on Barar is actually, originally Balar's very basic early character concepts were created by Trick Weeks, and they found themselves as lead writer with a lot of other stuff on their plate. So I had, at the time, as narrative director, and I'm well, if you need someone to write Balar, happy to write Balar. So the very basic concept of Balar is kind of this ancient, this expert in ancient elven magic was already there, but personality-wise, what her arc and all that was, that's what I came up with after the fact. And then we did, the usual peer review process. I put out this okay, this is what I want her arc to be. This is how I want her story to go. And then take feedback from the other writers, and then kind of evolved into what it is now. So
now, and if this is something you don't want to talk about, I can just cut this out. But on the council, you talked about how your diagnosis of ADHD definitely spoke with Balar and how you wrote her. You want to speak a bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was figuring out a lot about myself during the time I was writing Balar, and I think with every one of the characters, we put a lot of ourselves into it. For me, Balar is somebody who has some trouble, focusing sometimes, who sometimes finds her thoughts going a little bit too quickly. I wanted to write a character who is also dealing with that, somebody who just is able, when they can focus, they can do things, but it's just challenging for them to focus. So it was a lot of, I had a lot of fun, but it was also somewhat therapeutic to write this character who, and one of the things I wanted to write with Barar is this idea that in her case, it's not something what she really appreciates about Rook, if you play Rook this way, really appreciates about the other people is that they're not trying to fix her. They're seeing her as like, this is who she is. This is part of who she is. And for me, that's always been part of it too, is that's who I am. I mean, that's how I am where I am today, for the good and for ill. So
yeah. I want to talk about Balar's Valin. So I've saw in like the character creator, there's a bunch of different like elven Valins, but we've never seen hers before.
That's right.
So is this like a regional thing, or is this something that worships the Forgotten One?
So actually, Valin in general, while we've seen fairly consistent ones in the past, they're actually, it's hard to say because they're not really regional, but groups will adopt a similar Valin for a specific god, and they do change based on the region. Sometimes they change within a clan, sometimes they're associated with a region, sometimes they're associated with a specific family. So you may have multiple families in a single clan, and they may have, for example, a Mythal Valin that's different from the next family over. There's common elements in them, but yeah, it is actually, gosh, I can't remember the name of her own gods, Dirthamin, the god of knowledge. That's actually who Balar's Valin is for.
Oh, okay, okay. And is just because Davrin's is a bit different too. I always thought it looked more like ghilan'nain. Is that correct?
So actually, Davrin's is we're not talking about that quite yet, but
okay, sorry.
But yeah, no worries. I just have to, honestly, it's because I have to double check with the writers, like who is that one supposed to be for? But because for Davin, and Davin's actually an interesting case because Davrin's story is more one of, he was a part of a Dalish clan. He focuses more on the gods. It doesn't come up as much with him as it does for someone like Balar. So
okay, I guess my next question is like, since some of the marketing so far, we've been given like a little hint of the romance arcs for like Lucanus and Emmerich, and I was wondering if we could get a little bit of a taste of the others.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a little bit. I can talk about Balar's. I don't want to get too many spoilers on the other ones, but Balar is a character who very much believes everything. There's a guide to everything. Like, I need to know, how do I do a romance? Okay, there's got to be a book on this somewhere. There's got to be a way to explain it. So hers is a little bit more awkward. She's a little bit more unsure of the romance. I mean, she's had relationships before, but she's never really been in one that feels that potentially, if you go down that road, feels as potentially real as the one that you can have with Rook. So.
Okay.
But yeah, I think what I love about Follow Romances is each one has its own very specific flavor, and each one is supposed to evoke a different type of romance. So
yeah, there's some people worried coming off of Baldur's Gate 3 and like how Will's character was handled. Like, is Davin just going to be Asan's dad, or does he have his own arc?
Well, he has his own arc. Okay. I mean, Davin is a Grey Warden, and without getting into spoilers, being a Grey Warden in the context of the Veilguard is a very different and challenging thing to what it was before. So a lot of his arc is also learning to be a warden in this context. There's also elements. I mean, he does talk about his past. You know, him and Balar have banter about what he used to be, like his life as when he was part of his Dalish clan. So I mean, it's not just about him being a dad to Asan. I mean, Asan is a big part of it, but a lot of his arc is, again, just he's a Grey Warden and he learns what that means in this new world. So.
Kind of moving on to like some random questions that are more for me, I suppose. But there's been a number of us that have been following Veilguard, or what would be Veilguard, since like the Trespasser of it. And one of those things is also Joplin. How much of Joplin has made it into Morrison, you say?
We've tried a bunch of different, we've gone through a bunch of different ideas for Dragon of Veilguard, but I'd say honestly, at the end of Trespasser, we knew what we wanted to do. We knew we wanted to deal with the story of Solus. We knew we wanted to go to Tevinter. So those elements have been true literally since that DLC. Pretty much since we stabbed that dagger into the map at the end of the DLC. So
so much of the series like has been building up to like what Veilguard is kind of almost, it sounds like they're trying to answer, like what's up with the Elven Gods and the Blights. How did you guys decide like how much to answer, how much to keep away, and then
we always, I mean, there's certain things in the world that we always want to be mysteries. There's always things in Dragon Age that I'd say it's a red list of things. Like, we never want to answer these questions because we want to make sure it's mystery. But I think it came down to what's the story we want to tell, what do we want to reveal, and also my favorite part is what new threads do we want to start leaving for people to pull out. Like, just when you think you know everything about the world, throwing that kind of curveball of like, actually, no, you don't know everything about the world. There's more going on than you think. So
And that was going to be my next question. Like, is there going to be more questions?
Absolutely. There's going to be a lot more questions, and
Okay.
I'm very excited for people to find out what those questions are. So
Okay. This one's a nitpicky one. So a lot of the marketing so far, you've talked about the Lighthouse being in the Fade. Is that just like a simplification for people that don't really know the lore? Is it like actually in the Fade you can see the Black City, or is it kind of in like its own bubble of reality?
So it is in the Fade.
Okay.
Where it is in the Fade and how it relates to the rest of the Fade is something that you discover over the course of the game. But
Okay.
One of the things I say with Dragon to the Veilguard, with the Fade in particular, is everyone thinks they understand what the Fade is, and we're making it clear that no, you're just scratching. Even Solus only knew so much about the Fade at the point that you run into him at, or that I guess that he created the Veil. So
Okay. So I was trying to find the Black City in there. And I was like, I can't see it. Are we in it? I don't know. Okay. Another nitpicky one. So we're as of recording this, we're fresh off of the IGN exclusive video.
Yeah.
And it has now been known that we're now pronouncing it ghilan'nain
Yes.
rather than ghilan'nain. How did that come about?
Honestly, a lot of it just came down to how when the actors started saying it, that's the way we decided to pronounce it. I don't think there was ever a specific moment where like it needs to be pronounced ghilan'nain versus ghilan'nain, but it's been ghilan'nain for honestly as long as I remember this project. So
Okay. So it's just when we knew about it, we were like, whoa, what's this about?
yeah.
Sorry. So you have joked on Blue Sky that you have the power to make things canon.
Yeah.
So what would you rather make canon, the Dragon Age theme park ride or the IDW comics?
Oh my god. Theme park ride.
Will you guys ever talk about how those IDW comics came about?
Not publicly, probably.
Okay.
That honestly, on the other side of it for me is that was before my time. Like when those comics were created, I was a QA term tester on Sonic Chronicles, so I have the context from people who heard it from someone else, but I don't think anyone who was actually directly involved in those is still at the studio. So
Okay. Maybe I mean those were choice comics.
Yes.
Kind of in the background doing a lot of heavy lifting in the fandom is a Tumblr user called Felisan.
Yes.
And they're actually a very good friend of mine. And I know that they would just be overjoyed if I asked to your face, is there any chance that we can get a last court just back out into the wild?
Last part. The problem. I mean, I would say I don't actually have a great answer to that one, and largely because that's not fully ours. That's owned by other companies. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So there's been some questions about like the die system that you guys talked about, and for in Veilguard.
The die system.
It's not die. You like change the
Transmog.
color palette. Transmog. Yeah,
yeah.
and like you can change the color palette.
So transmog actually, you can't change the color palette on individual items, but each item has multiple color variations that you can unlock that allow you to do that. So, for example, an outfit may have 7 variations, each with its own color palette to it. So.
Does that include weapons?
No, weapons are. There's different weapons with different effects, but there's not the same level of. There's 16 versions of the sword with different colors. So.
Does some people were wondering for like transmog system, is that like something you need like a token to do, or is it free?
As soon as you acquire an item, you can. And there's 2 types of items. There's items which are just pieces of gear you get in the world. Then there's item appearances. They don't have any stats associated with them because they're not actually equipable on their own, but you can transmog to those items. So, for example, when you're in the Lighthouse, you have your casual clothing. That doesn't have any stats, but you can transmog to it, and you can transmog that to other appearances too. So.
Okay. This is probably my maybe last question, but if you can take a minute, would you be possible to give us one word that doesn't really mean anything to us, but when given in the context of the game, we're gonna like scream and cry and throw up?
Oh boy, that's a hard one. I think the word would be regret.
Regret?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna go too deep, but there's a lot of places where that'll show up. So.
Okay.
And that's all the time I had. A huge thank you to John for sitting down with me and the rest of the EA team for being so kind as to fly me out and participate in all this. I have just a few more preview event videos I want to publish, so I do hope to see you back here soon. And with that, the rest are all.